Good afternoon, everybody. So, coming to the introduction about the sampling error. So, three phases is like what we are talking about the sampling error. It is not in the one initial phase, it is about during the collection and during handling and also during the processing of the specimen. The three phases, the sampling error would occur. And what if the sampling error occurs? What happens? It affects the diagnosis because the wrong no lab value, it affects the diagnosis, the entire diagnosis and treatment goes wrong, and the patient outcomes is going to be a tragedy. And preventing these errors is crucial for the patient safety because the lab error is not supposed to happen in the healthcare system. We have to be very extra cautious when we are handling the sample. So, because to enhance the patient safety, as we are saying. So, what are the consequences of sampling error? It is not only on the patient aspect, it is also for the organization. When it comes to the patient aspect, it is like delayed or the wrong diagnosis, which I were earlier mentioning that. And also, what happens? You're going to prick the patient again, you're going to take the resample. It is like repeat testing causes the patient discomfort because you have explained everything to the patient and you've done the sampling process. Imagine if it is a difficult sampling for the patient. So where you're going to do the sampling error, what happens for the patient when you go for the second prick? Entire patient dissatisfaction is going to be happen. And for the organization, the wastage of resources and time. Yes, for the sample collection, you're going to allot some time to do the procedure because it has to be a perfect procedure. It takes time. So, and then also the resources, what you're going to intend again and you're going to get it for that. So that we're going to waste. And also medical legal risk. It is about the patient may sue even the case on the organization, which like widely happening on the western side. And also here again, it's no trending it up.
Yeah.
And best
Also,
practice.
the reputation of the hospital is also at stake.
Yes,
Once
definitely
you
so.
get an error and the patient, has loses the confidence. So that's also
Yes,
important. Yeah.
I agree with you, sir. And the best practice to avoid the sampling error, we have listed on the best practice what you're going to do to avoid such errors is like first thing is about the correct patient identification. That is very important for any procedure. Before doing any procedure, you have to identify whether we are at the right patient room, we are into the right patient where we're going to perform the procedure, and use of correct container or tube. That is another thing. You have collected the sample but you have transferred the sample into the wrong container, another disaster. And third thing is about adherence to the infection control protocol. You are not following the infection control protocol for the sampling, then there would be some anonymous growth in the sample which is going to give you a wrong reading for the lab report. And bedside sample labeling, it is very important. You can't even imagine what happens if you do a wrong labeling for the sample what we have collected. For that you have to follow the best practice. Take the sample container with the patient label. You go there, get the sample done and then label immediately inside the patient room. Don't even think you can do it later. You may even forget it and no wrong label will happen. And proper sample storage, this is another thing. Each sample has a different storage of things, might be at the refrigerator or even the room temperature. You have to know before even doing the procedure what kind of sample you want to collect it and how the temperature has to be maintained. And timely sample transportation, collect the sample and you cannot delay transporting to the lab. That again gonna to give, you would have done all your hardship of work to do the sample collection, but the transportation have got delayed. Again you're going to get no, the lysis of samples would occur and you're going to get the wrong sample report from the lab. No wonder it happens. So before even collecting no the lab sample, you have to inform and make the transport guy ready at the patient room end. So to prevent the sampling error at the bedside for nursing professionals, we would like to show you up the best practice through the standard operating procedure for the nurses. So why the sampling error is very, sampling error matters a lot in the healthcare system. As you all know, the wrong sample distort the research findings, misdiagnosis will happen, and accurate sampling is very important to do the right treatment for the patient. And also this is the study which shows like the sampling error occurs in the three phases. One is pre-analytical errors, another one is post-analytical and analytical error. Coming to the lowest contribution in the pie chart, the 15% is shared by post-analytical and analytical errors, where the maximum number of contribution of error is depending on the pre-analytical error which occurs during the sample collection. So I'll take you through the SOP in the form of mnemonic, and the mnemonic is about safe draw. So this is actually designed for the bedside sampling procedure, which is aligned with the best practices. We will look into it, what it is actually. The safe draw is nothing but the S stands for scan and confirm patient ID, and A stands for aseptic technique. Yes. And F stands for first label, then collect, and E stands for equipment check, and D stands for documentation, R stands for right storage conditions, and A stands for avoid delays in transport, W stands for watch for common errors. It's like you have to, if you have a scanning system, barcode system, the S is like scan and confirm patient ID. Otherwise, you will do the two identifiers check. You will ask the name, patient name, and you will verify with the patient file, and the UHID is checked for the patient. And the date of birth here is mentioned. You like usually in the broad they will use to check of the date of birth. And for the aseptic technique, you have to perform bandaging, use gloves, disinfect the site. All these protocols has to be followed. And even for the first label and then collect, it is you have to label the tube and then you have to collect it. And E is equipment, is about right tube you're collecting it off, whether you have taken the right container to transfer the sample what you have collected. And soon after the soon after you have collected the sample and you have sent it, you have to document it, at what time you have collected, at what time you have sent, even in your nursing documentation. And you have to store it, as I have already mentioned. You have to follow the protocol, whether it is stored in the refrigerator mode, with the cold sampling, or in the room temperature. And to avoid sample delay transport, you have to make sure the runner boy has to be ready. And avoid hemolysis, wrong tube, low volume. It is like common error which happens if you collect it in the wrong container. These all things would occur. We will take you in depth through it. So as I've said, confirm patient identity before sampling is the scan and confirm patient ID. Two identifiers for accuracy. You will check the wristband and the request form. Never rely on the room number. We will not rely on the room number because it is not the right identification for that. So to ensure accuracy, you have to do two confirmation. And if the patient has a QR code, as I have said, you can scan this QR code and you can confirm the patient identification. And for the aseptic, you have to perform hand hygiene, you have to wear the gloves and mask, disinfect puncture site thoroughly, and prevent contamination and infection. And the F stands for first label. It is about like label before immediately at the bedside. Dr. Pari, you have anything to say about this labeling sample tubes?
Yeah, this is important, when you are doing multiple samples. The same holds true when you're drawing, medicines to a syringe also. So basically, as soon as you collect sample, you need to label it and then go for the next sample. So labeling everything, all the, you can't do it like, the automobile line, no? So you need to do it one by one. So if you label all the tubes at the same time, then there's a chance that this might get, you might put the sample in the wrong tube. So label the tube immediately and then go to the next tube. I think that is what is important. And again, pre-labeling, labeling all the tubes or not labeling them at the point of collection and saying that I'll do it somewhere else. All these will lead to errors. So I think.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And E stands for equipment check. It is about, as I've said, you have different no color Vacutainer guide. You can see the no color guide, Vacutainer color guide on the display. So you have to correct tube selection is very important. Match the tube type to test. Avoid mismatch. We'll tell you what are all the good practice you can do to select the right tube whenever the sample order has been given to you. An expiry check. You take the Vacutainer, the right color, and you have taken the right Vacutainer. It is not only important, you have to check the expiry date of the Vacutainer. Mostly whenever the audit comes, what we would see is like expired vacutainers where we would have been ignored it, or we would have missed out in checking during the regular expiry check. So this is another important thing. If it is discarded or damaged, you have to throw it immediately. You have to hand it over to the lab where they will take care of the further process. Contamination prevention, like you have to inspect for cracks or leaks, ensure proper sealing. If the vacutainer you are taking it up, first thing you will check the expiry. First thing is whether it is a right tube, expiry, and then contamination prevention. To prevent that, you have to check, hold it above your eye level, and then you see whether any crack or leak is there before even you collecting the sample inside that. And also, open the vacutainer lid and check whether it is like properly sealed after that. And special requirement is like check for additives, like follow test specific needs. Some anticoagulants would be like recommended for certain lab collection. And then visual is like color coded tube chart. Like you should have a bedside color coded tube chart in order to run the show, without even any hurdles. And D stands for documentation. I've told you.
One
You
minute,
have.
1 minute, Stella. In that, I just wanted to make a point. And
Yes, sir.
so it's a methodology. So again, the vacutainer is used. I'm sure the word vacutainer knows the meaning is clear. So it has vacuum inside. So why this technology came in place is to two things. One is to prevent any contamination, and two is to prevent Sharp's injury. These are the two things. So what you need to do is just put the vacutainer needle into the patient's vein, and then puncture. No, if you put the no, if you give the take the vacutainer needle which the manufacturer provides, all you need to do is put the vacutainer into that needle, and automatically the set volume will get into the tube. So that is another advantage. You don't
Yes.
need to worry, how much of volume each tube needs. So that is, the vacuum is set so that the correct volume is done. But unfortunately, I find many of the people who draw the bedside will open the cap. They'll have then remove the needle and then put it into the vacutainer. So that defeats the whole purpose of using a vacutainer. You may as well use a small glass tube. So this is again, these are best practices. So without diluting the best practices, if you do it, and all you have to do is indent for more of these vacutainer syringes. That is all, and it doesn't cost much.
Yes.
That's something which I wanted to highlight in the equipment part of it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is a very important point. Even as Dr. Pari have said, no, there are different kinds of vacutainer needles which is available depending on the patient, vein strength. And D stands for documentation. It's about accurate records. You have to record the date and the time and the who have taken the sample. That is very important. Who have taken the sample, you have to record it. And also you have to include the test information, that is like whether you have collected the sample during the fasting or after the meal or whatever it is. You have to important information together which is aligned with the record documentation for the sample. You have to do it. And support lab interpretation is like you have to detailedly document about like accurate lab results, and like you have to know how you have collected. And also once the lab updates have been come, you have to document the, even for the critical lab alerts, you have to document in red color, or you have the special chart, you have the seal. All those things has to be followed. And timely updates is like document changes immediately after sampling. You have you're going to document after the sample. You have to maintain up-to-date record for the patient safety. For example, you're going to you have done the sample, you have taken the sample. Before that, you're going to document like what test has to be performed, ordered by the doctors, all those things. After the sampling, you will be recording like at what stage you have taken the sample. For example, I have told you like before meals or after meals, whatever it is. And after the lab reports come, you have to state the normal reports values and the critical lab alerts value. And also about like you have to inform to the doctors immediately if any critical lab alert comes. And R stands for right storage conditions. It's like storage temperature. I have told you enough about that. And also light protection, protect samples from direct light. You can even use the opaque containers whenever it is necessary. And container integrity, it's like already I've mentioned, the container has to be like leak proof and there should not be any crack. and you have to check the containers are properly sealed. Sometimes when you take a vacutainer, imagine the cap is loose, no, and if it is not properly sealed, please don't use that, because already it is no exposed to the atmospheric air. So that what you have to check whether it is properly sealed. If it is properly sealed, then you can go ahead with the sample collection. Avoid delays in transport, like pneumatic tube system and courier systems are there. Most of the hospital they use a pneumatic tube system. And also stick to timeline for no sample stability. You should give priority for the sample collection. Once it is done, beforehand the transport guy has to be ready to take away to the lab. Whether you have the internally you have the lab, then it is quite fine, but still it has to be on time. External lab you are sending, then all the things should be like quite ahead for the planning to transport the sample. And watch for common errors. What are the common errors? Usually the hemolysis, like the sample will lysed up where you will get the wrong reading after you have sent the sample to the lab, and wrong tube. Like instead of one tube, you will be collecting another tube, because you don't know what kind of tube has to be supposed to know. If like you have a junior level nurse who have been proposed a task to do the sample collection without even asking a query or something, so with her earlier memory, she would take a wrong sample container, vacutainer, and she is going to send the sample in that. And insufficient volume. Like as sir have said, if you're using a proper vacutainer needle, you don't have to worry about the volume of the sample what you're collecting, because automatically the when you insert that, using the vacutainer, it knows where to stop, how much to collect. But if you are using manually, like using a syringe and needle technique, and then you're transferring into the vacutainer, then you have to see that vacutainer where it has a dark black mark, where up to that you have to you have to collect it. If it is lesser than that, then again you will end up in resampling. And expired container, I have already mentioned what you have to avoid it. This is all the common errors which would occur when you're doing for the sampling process. And unlabeled sample, always label samples immediately after the collection. You should not delay in that process. And recap about the safe draw. It is about patient ID confirmation. Utilize 2 identifiers for verification. Always check the wristband. And aseptic technique, you have to ensure hand hygiene is performed, and also use gloves and mask appropriately to avoid the contamination. And also immediate labeling at the bedside. Never delay the labeling process. You cannot even imagine what happens if the wrong label occurs, or the sample have left out without any labeling. What happens? You will not know whose sample it is, and then you will end up in resampling. Error awareness, like stay alert for common sampling error. Uncertain about any procedure. For example, you don't know about like in which vacutainer you have to collect the sample. No harm in asking questions to your colleague or your senior person, whomever it is they are in your ward. So always raise question like in which vacutainer I have to collect. I'm not sure about that. No harm in that, because you're going to ensure the patient safety rather ending up in the sampling error. So that I would suggest to you all. And implementation tips, like you can implement a pocket referral card. It is like a quick access to SOP. I was telling you, like if someone who comes to your department like very new, they are not very sure about the vacutainer color codings and for which sample in which container they have to put in. They may even have like other seniors are very busy about. If you give a referral card to them, a pocket card, like you can hang it out with your ID cards, where it has a very clear demonstration will be there for which sample, what color sample tube you're going to have. It's a quick ready recurrent card. And also another implementation what you can do is like simulation training, like realistic scenario to enhance the practical skill. You can create among that monthly once or twice you can have such kind of training. And regular audits, you have to audit like how many sample you have collected. So you have to audit your reports, how many error samples have been reported and why it have reported, what are all the reasons. You have to get back to it and you have to analyze where you're lacking, and you can correct it among yourself. And new staff orientation, always onboarding new joiners, you have to give the specific SOP training for them before even giving them or assigning them the sample collection. New joiners is like not only the freshers, it is also new to your hospital. You have to orient them to your SOP to avoid sampling error. And feedback mechanism, always feedbacks, it should be like forced an environment with the open communication for sharing insights. Conduct a regular meeting, and also you can allow your nurses to talk about like where all they are finding difficulty during the sample, no during taking, while they're taking sample, I'm sorry. So that enhance your and your no that also make your job easy to look into your SOP, what is wrong in that, and how to revise that based on their needs. So this is about like implementation tips. So coming to this,
I think you just stop there. I think I really appreciate using that acronym. It is really good.
yes sir,
People can remember that. Safe draw again means that the sample is drawn safely, and
yes,
alphabet stands for one best practice. That is
yes,
really a good one. Thank you so much.
thank you so much sir. And here comes the scenario, because we don't run webinar without the scenario which gives you a quick insight about this entire program.
Yeah,
A
actually,
nurse,
this section is from learning from mistakes, right? I think you didn't put that slide in the beginning. Like every week we have this
yes,
theme.
yes,
So this is the second week, if I'm not mistaken.
yes
Yeah.
sir, yes,
Second week is learning from mistakes. So that's what we are focusing today.
yes. And this is about the scenario. Here you all can listen to this. A nurse collected a blood sample from the patient named Neha. Accidentally, she labeled it with patient's Neha's detail. So she have collected the sample from Neha and she have labeled it with Sneha's detail. It is like same, no, look like the
Underline.
same name. Yes, yes. And the lab processed the sample and entered the results under Sneha. Anyway, because you have labeled as Sneha, that is why the lab have entered the results under the Sneha's name itself. The mistake was found when the doctor noticed that the lab result didn't match the patient's condition. So this is the scenario. And before getting into the root cause analysis with Dr. Pari, I would like to give another announcement about this airway management, because I can see quite number of participants who have missed this announcement during the beginning. I'm sorry to the participants who have already have heard about these announcements. I will do it quickly. This is about airway management masterclass in just 2 hours. It is about, you don't have to worry about no airway emergencies at the ward. It is not only the critical emergency nurses can handle this. Even in the ward bedside, you can initially you can manage with airway emergencies. We'll give you a bonus points is like ready to use airway checklists and clinical tools, which is worth rupees 499, and the entire 2 hours program, it's cost about, with the early bird offer, it is 199 rupees, and it's going to happen this month 31st May. At the end of the webinar, I will show this QR code. You can scan this QR code and then you can avail this program. And also another announcement about the certificate. All the participants stay till the end, and there will be the link which will be posted in the chat box, where you have to click that form and you have to fill it up. Then only post webinar you will be receiving your certificate for the participation to this webinar.
So that is the certificate for this webinar, not for the airway
Yes.
management.
No, sir. Certificate to this webinar, not related to the airway management. Thank you for pointing out very clearly, sir. And coming to the root cause analysis. So far we have done a lot of audit tools, quality tools related to this topic. Sir have explained a lot of things about brainstorming, YY analysis, and how this YY analysis can be done. And it's very quite interesting. So coming to the new method of root cause analysis is about the Pareto chart, another quality tool. So Dr. Pari, he is going to take us through the Pareto chart, how to use it and what it is actually, and how we can implement this when an incident occurs. So it's all yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Stella. So basically, again, incident reporting is the most important way by which you can learn from mistakes and avoid them in the future. And though for lack of time, we are jumping directly to the root cause analysis. You would have, actually done brainstorming and then, gone to the place where the ward where this incident happened, spoken to everybody, and then written the incident report. So once the incident report is written, then you need to get into the root cause analysis. As Stella pointed out, there are several tools to do the root cause analysis. And once after doing the root cause analysis, you come up with a bunch of factors. So especially if you use the fishbone analysis, you will come up with a lot of causes for a particular problem. Now, how do you prioritize this problem is where this Pareto chart becomes useful. Next slide. So it is you need to solve problems smarter. So basically, you look at the fishbone analysis. It is very confusing because a lot of all these fins will have each and every man, machine, material.
Yes.
Each of them will have different causes. So you don't become take the hard route. There is a quite smart route by which is the use of the Pareto chart, and that's what we are going to explain right now. Next slide. So okay, so what in any this Pareto chart is not only in root cause analysis. Anywhere you find there is a lot of things which you are not able to find out, which is the most important thing to deal with first. This will work. So suppose things that take too much of time. Say for example, in the OP there is there is a prolonged waiting time, and patients are complaining about it, and you give the feedback to the patients, and the patients will come with a lot of causes or complaints, and you can prioritize which is the complaint you have to tackle first, things which are frustration for patients and staff. And so it is very important where to focus our energy to fix them. You cannot fix everything at the same time. And if you fix something which is actually causing very few of the problems, the problem will still remain. So that is why this is very important. Next slide. So Pareto chart, it is pronounced Pareto, okay? It is the, Wilfredo Pareto was the man who talked about it. And it's a very simple visual tool. And it'll, it is like, it will help you to find out which are the things which actually cause the problem, and you can detect it very easily. But one important caveat to this is that you need data. So without collecting data, you cannot use this chart. So you need to have collected data, and with the data, you can actually use the Pareto chart very easily. Next slide. So this Pareto chart is also known as the 80-20 rule. It's based on the 80-20 rule. So it is said that 80% of our problems come from only 20% of the causes. So many of the married people will be able to understand that, right? So 80% of problem comes from the other half. That's what we say. And this helps us to focus on the vital few and not the trivial many. So these are all technical terms. When you're using Pareto chart, we will find people using this 80-20 rule, vital few, no trivial many and all that. So we will explain that, so that you get a very good idea after this. Next. Okay, so let's take this example of a patient that's dissatisfaction. Okay, so patients, there is a clinic, especially very busy clinic, maybe no internal medicine or an obstetrician's clinic, usually the problem, and so there is long waiting time, or the patients may be telling in the feedback there is very poor communication. I came 4 hours ago, nobody told me, how long I'm going to wait. Inadequate facilities, the waiting area is very, the chairs are not comfortable, the AC is not working. Even when we get to go to the front desk, the staff are very indifferent, no information given, and after all this, they are paying too much of money. So there is a lot of causes which could come if you do an audit or if you start getting feedback for this. Now, which one to tackle? This is the problem. So first is to list the complaints and how many complaints are there. And then once you have maybe interviewed about 100 patients or 200 patients, now you know the incidence of these complaints. Next slide. Now this is the most important. So you need to sort you need to add and you need to find the percentages. What do you mean by that? So step one is to sort complaints from the most frequent to the least frequent. So if you look here, this example, long waiting time is the most frequent. Then comes the poor communication, then the inadequate facilities, staff behaviors, then lack of information is the other one. So totally, there are 118 complaints, but the most frequent is put on the top and the least frequent is put on the bottom. So this you have to do. Then you have to add up the counts. That is the cumulative frequency. So first is 50, then 50 plus 30 is 80, then 80 plus 15 becomes 95, 95 plus 10 is 105, 105 plus 8 is 113, and this is the 113 plus 8 will become 118. So this is the cumulative number. So this is how you calculate the cumulative number. If you use Excel, and you can use the function and it will automatically calculate for you both the cumulative number and then you find out the cumulative percentage. So 50, out of 118 is this percentage, right? That's a cumulative percentage. But then here you have to have 80. That is the cumulative number out of 118. So like that, you start calculating the cumulative percentage of each one of them until they reach the 100%. So based on this, you now need to prepare the chart. Okay. So next slide. Okay. So this is a simple bar chart. Okay. You have the number of patients here and the number of reasons. This you just have to just highlight the table, right click and ask Excel to make the chart. It will do it. Not a problem. So you have charted it from the most frequent complaint to the least frequent complaint in this bar chart. And it will also show the cumulative frequency. Okay, so this is the cumulative frequency of the percentage and the bars are telling you the frequency of the complaints. So this gives you a very good visual example, which is the most common, which is the least common of a particular problem. And the cumulative percentage will go all the way up to 100%. Okay, so this is the number and this side will be the percentage. So next slide. So this is I feel the most important slide. So what does this chart tell us? So we will come to the 80-20 rule. So look where the cumulative percentage line crosses or gets close to 80%. So you can say I just rounded the numbers. So 42 is the long waiting time, then 67 is a poor communication and 80 is the inadequate facility. 79 or something it came. Okay. So 42.4, 67 and 80.5. So in this particular example, these three causes, long waiting time, poor communication, inadequate facilities will be causing 80% of your problems. And this is our vital few. So when you're going to start fixing it, that is doing corrective action and preventive action, you just need to focus on these three, these vital few. Don't worry about the trivial many, that though there are many, they will contribute to only 20% of the problem. So this is how the Pareto chart works. Next slide. So this is just a tool to focus on what matters most. So it tells us what to change, what to improve, so that your services in the OPD, the complaints in the OPD will come down drastically. And in this example you have taken, it is reducing waiting times, it is improving communication and addressing the facility inadequacies. So this is how you do a Pareto chart analysis. So after doing this analysis, next slide, I think still I can take them through the rest of the thing. Yeah, I already discussed this. So it's based on the 80-20 rule. And basically all of us have very limited time. Any poll we do, the first cause will be lack of time, right? We all face that. So this is very simple but very powerful tool which will help you to solve this problem. Next slide. Yeah, so then now we get into correction. So we we address the three things which we solved. Next slide. So in correction, so basically this immediate correction is like fall and all that, you have to immediately do it. But here it is corrective action and preventive action. So you update the relevant teams, and then if it is a lab, you're coming back to the lab example, the lab error. with the case example we told. So basically, whom all will you update? You have to update the physician, you have to update the lab, and you have to update the relatives. Okay, very important to involve the patient also. And then if at all a treatment has started because of the wrong report, you have to immediately stop the treatment, then recollect the sample and label it accordingly and report the incident. So this is the immediate correction, right? So correction is there, corrective action is there, preventive action. So three things have to be done once you find. So here you're talking about the immediate correction. Next. So you can talk about the corrective and preventive actions.
Yes, sir. So, as sir have said, when the sampling error occurs, like you have to do the immediate action, and after that you have to do the corrective action, preventive action. So, widely it is termed like kappa. They used to say to you whenever the incident occurs, have you done the kappa? So, corrective action for this problem, like fix the problem by identifying, eliminating the root cause. So, how we have done the root cause, sir have explained based on the Pareto. You will be doing the root cause analysis and you will find out what is the major reason for it, and you will fix the problem by identifying the major, which is a vital few. And preventive action is like prevent recurrence by implementing systemic improvements. You can do what is actually suitable for your organization depending on organization protocol and policy. You look back into the SOP and you work on that to do the preventive action. For me, I would say preventive action, when you do it, it is like in one unit the error have happened. So what is that corrective action you will do in that particular unit? You will do that corrective action. The preventive action is like extensive. When you do the preventive action, it is actually collaborated with your SOP. What happens? You will train all your nurses in all the units. For example, the error occurred in the 4th floor, for example. After this preventive action, entire hospital organization, all the healthcare professionals who are handling this sample, they will be getting corrected and trained. And coming to the corrective action for the sampling error, withdraw the wrong report, and you have to take the new blood sample from the patient Neha, because you have taken Neha and you have labeled as Neha and label it correctly. Inform the label and doctor and clinical team and the patient about the error. Before even taking the new blood sample, you have to inform them and you have to do this process and check and correct any treatment given based on the wrong results. And also preventive action, you have to use the 2 identifiers for patient ID. This is about the corrective action. Now I think you all can understand what I meant it. Corrective action you will do in that particular unit. For example, we were talking about patient Neha. Where the patient Neha was there, the particular unit you're going to do the corrective action. Now coming to the preventive action, you will not even wanted this incident to be occur in your entire hospital anymore. So the preventive action comes. You're going to implement the process. Use the 2 identifiers for the patient ID and label the sample immediately. That will prevent you from such kind of naming that entire sample process. And train staff on labeling and the ID, and use correct containers. That is another thing, contributing factors. And reduce the human interventions to prevent error. Example, barcode system. And summarizing to this today's webinar, like sampling error impact diagnosis, treatment, and patient safety. It is very important to avoid such sampling errors, and you all know now what has to be done. Identify root causes using Pareto chart to focus on most frequent error. Always when it comes, you have to focus on a vital few, as sir have explained you all. And corrective action, recollect the sample, relabel it correctly, and inform all the stakeholders and update the patient records. You also have to update what have you done incident, and also you have recollected it. And then preventive measures, use the 2 patient ID checks, label at the bedside, and reinforce staff training with the barcode system to avoid the human interventions. If you don't have barcode system, you have to do the manual check. It is like patient ID band. You have to check the patient name with the patient admission chart, and also referring to the UHID. Name and UHID is the 2 identifiers for if in case you are missing out with the barcode system. So this is refreshing the today's SOP with the mnemonics, which is safe draw to prevent the sampling error at the bedside. S stands for scan and confirm the patient ID, and it is actually about the patient identification before doing the procedure. A stands for aseptic technique to prevent from the contamination. F stands for first label then collect. You have to label, and also remember the point what sir was saying. Don't label all the containers together. label and then collect, and then label and then collect. Even the same patient have 3-4 number of sample to be collected, you have to follow this. And E stands for equipment check. You have to check whether the vacuum are up to date without expiry, and then no cracks, and any contamination, like the lid is tight, it is not loose. All those things you have to check. And documentation, record the time, date, and also who have collected the sample. And right storage, and you should know what temperature is required to store that specific sample what we have collected. And A stands for avoid delay in transport. You have done all those things, you cannot waste the patient sample by transporting delay to the lab. And watch for common errors, always avoid hemolysis and wrong tube, low volume. For that we have told you a lot of best implementation what you can do. In that I would like to highlight, you can give the ready recurrent card, which will helpful to all the professionals who are handling with the sample collection. Thank you all. Thank you so much.